Now, if by chance there is a planet that is like Earth, and if by chance it's there for us to colonize, okay, do you think you and I can get there? Okay. We, as an individual, would not be able to get on a spaceship and to travel to another world. The time it takes even for the closest star is 4 light years. If we could travel to the speed of light, which we can't, it would take us 4 years to go. That's a lot of food to take. Okay, that's a lot of time to be in a little tiny space. We can't even go fractions of light speed, so it would take us tens of thousands of years, longer than our lifetime, to travel. Okay, we would need other ways. So in science fiction, other ways are like Star Trek. You've got the warp drive, or Stargate. You have a wormhole where you move from one planet to another. There's all sorts of science fiction-y ways to get there, but there actually might be a real way to go from Earth to another planet. Okay, what we're talking about and what it would be is what's called a generational ship. If we create a spaceship that has a whole ecosystem inside, basically you put a town inside a spaceship, and then you put people in that little town, and you send it off into space, and it starts traveling. What would happen is those people would live, have a whole life, have babies, grow those babies up, and the next generation would take over, and they're still traveling, and then they would grow up and have babies, and their children, and their children, and their children. After a certain period of time, we could get there if we do it in that strategy. So there are some fundamental ways that there might be the possibility. Still, a lot of work would need to be done to develop technology like that. So a planet might be out there. It may be habitable in which we could go. But if there was a planet out there that kind of looked like Earth, that had the same conditions, could there be life? What would they do when people die? On a generation ship, what would you do with the people? No, you probably wouldn't put it in space. It's a sealed system, okay? And so what you would have to do, and this is really kind of, it may sound icky, but you would have to recycle everything. And so you would bury the dead, and they would decompose, and from dust we are made, and from dust we go. And those resources, those molecules, the nitrogen, oxygen, carbon, would be recycled into the ecosystem as we would go. If by chance you sent them off and buried them into space, what you would continually do is take the material that you're using to live and keep throwing it off the ship. And eventually you would run out of material to make everything. And that would be difficult. You would also have to control lots of other things. You have to recycle water, you have to recycle air, you couldn't lose much. You would also have to control population. You would have to have population growth, but it can't grow too much or too fast, or you'll become imbalanced. And so there's a lot of challenges to do that. Now, if we have a planet out there that we could colonize, maybe life actually developed somewhere else in the universe on one of these planets. Well, if there were, could we communicate with them? In terms of communication, the fastest any type of communication that can travel is at the speed of light. So if you send a question to our closest star, they would hear the question in 4 years. They would think about it and send it back. Even if it took them a minute, it would take them another 4 years for the response to get back. So you would have 4 years to ask a question, another 4 years for the response. That's kind of a very difficult conversation to happen, okay? Now, what we are doing, the SETI project, the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, is listening for evidences of other intelligent life. We think we might be able to overhear something that somebody is saying out in space, whether it is directed towards us or if it's just out there. Okay? Now, if we think about this, most of the types of radio signals, and that was before TV, but the first kind of communications that were powerful enough to get into space from Earth started in the 30s, in the 1930s. So the first signals that are coming from the Earth have gone out as far as 88, 89 light years away. There's still not a lot of stars in that volume, but those radio waves will continue to go out into the universe. Someone might be able to hear us, and maybe we might be able to hear someone else. All right? But here's an example. The next video I'm going to show you is the Earth. The one thing about us is we're not hiding in the universe. We are sending a lot of signals off of this planet. Okay, everything from radio to TV to all sorts of things. And so we're just sending it out in all directions. Could someone find us? Okay, here's an example. So we're not hiding. All this stuff's going out. Every radio station, every television station. The farther you go away, back in time we go. The kinds of signals that you'll hear. Now remember, we're not hiding. We're sending out all of these uncontrolled, lots of sound and energy and radio waves and TV waves all out into the universe. How likely is it, if there was a civilization out there, how likely it is they're going to hear us? Probably not very likely. It's energy. The sound doesn't travel, but the energy wave of the radio wave travels. And so you don't actually hear it, but the energy modulations can be converted into sound. And so if it were caught, just like our radio telescopes, we catch that energy and we can send that to a speaker, and it makes noise, like the pulsar, that pulsing. And so we just send that signal to a noisemaker. And so some person or something could do that also. But there is a very, very tiny chance that if there was someone out there, they could actually see us. And conversely, if something was out there. Do I really believe that it's there? Not really. But the possibility does exist, and I'm not going to limit God and say, nope, you can't do this and you must do that. And so, but in the way that we understand how the world works, we're not going to be traveling from one planet to the other in our single lifetimes. And so it would be very difficult for us to communicate or to travel in any time frame that would be of interest to a person in their own life.